Carlos Ramirez, owner of NVS Audio in Roselle, New Jersey. So this is a quick video on how to properly service your motorcycle when you're replacing the battery or disconnecting the battery for any reason. I know better. I did something I shouldn't have done on my brand new CVO. I was in a rush. In any, especially push start vehicles, so keyless ignition like the CVOs, you're supposed to turn the ignition on, pull the main fuse, then disconnect the battery. These bikes are more sensitive than a standard ignition bike. With the standard ignition bike, there's no current flowing through the ignition until you turn the switch. The reason there's current flowing on these non-ignition bikes is it's waiting for you to push the button so the bike can come on and flow current. So there are systems that are active on these keyless ignition bikes that aren't active on an ignition switch bike. Once the ignition switch bike sees you turn on the ignition, then it knows you're gonna flip the ignition switch and power the ignition and start the bike. On these keyless go bikes, it has to look for the remote. So there's current going through the circuits looking for the remote. Ended up having a dead battery at SEMA. So on the older bikes, I swapped the battery out exactly like I do on the older bikes, disconnect power, disconnect ground. The bike didn't like it and ended up locking up the BCM on the bike. The bike actually flagged the VIN, had to take it, so once I got it back from SEMA, I had to take it to the dealer. Anthony and his crew took care of me right away. The bike was only down for 2 days, but I ended up flagging the VIN. When you turn the ignition on, no matter what you do, the thumb controls light up, but nothing else. The screen doesn't light up, and the fuel pump doesn't prime, absolutely nothing. So the proper procedure for these bikes is to turn the ignition switch on, let the bike power on, pull the main fuse. On the older bikes, it was a larger red blade fuse. On this one, it's a much smaller type fuse. Pull the fuse out, let the bike power down, then go ahead and remove the battery, install the new battery, replace the fuse, and you'll have no issues. So I did a quick video. If it happened to me, I know it's gonna happen to somebody else, and this could save you a ton of headache and a trip to the dealer. It really doesn't matter what year your bike is, but you get away with it on the older bikes. On the new 23 and up CVOs, I did not get away with it. I do not recommend trying it. I was in a rush, and then it cost me more time. So on these newer bikes, you have to do it this way. It's gonna save you a lot of trouble. If you're a shop, it's gonna save you from having to send the bike to the dealer, because there's literally nothing you can do. The scanners don't even communicate with these bikes yet. So there's literally nothing you can do. The bike has to go to the dealer. It's 2 minutes and it'll save you a ton of headache. So check out the video. I hope this helps a bunch of people. So first we have to remove the clutch side saddlebag. These bags are a little bit different because they're sealed imported. Okay, if you follow the instructions in the manual, you have to turn the ignition on and you have to remove the main fuse. The main fuse looks a little bit different than the older bikes because they use this style fuse instead of the blade style fuse. So you turn the ignition on. You remove this fuse. Now the bike is ready to be worked on. Now you remove the seat and disconnect the battery. So just on like the older bikes, unclip, unclip. This is different. This is the power connector for the BCM. You don't have to touch that or that or that. You're just gonna unclip it and flip it. Go ahead, Chris.
Oh, you have a screw over there. Tore. I made a mistake, 27.
Now you have access to the battery, so you remove the 10 millimeter, 10 millimeter, move the cables to the side, and use the strap to lift the battery out.
You can use that one to show the tree because so many times that is old that broke.
This is a brand new bike.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the way you're supposed to do it. Chris wants to show you a little trick. Chris says a lot of times on the older bikes, this strap breaks. So if this strap is broken, this is another way you could do it. He keeps a leather seat strap from an older bike that we were working on where the customer upgraded the seat so it doesn't use it anymore. Obviously, you could use your strap, but I'm not sure if you'd want to. But any leather strap will work. Just reinstall the factory 10 millimeter screws. They're M6s. And it makes it nice and easy to drop the battery in place or pull the battery out, just like that. We're upgrading to a Braille lithium, so you're not going to need the strap because the battery is super light. And you can drop it in place with one hand. So he's going to reconnect. This is the harness for the taillights. And he reconnected. It's very important that you reconnect this. This is actually the antenna that reads the key fob. So if you do not connect this, when you go to turn the bike on, it's either going to ask for a pin or it's not going to react at all. So make sure you connect this back in. It's a 2-pin connector. This is the antenna that reads the factory key fob. So harness to the rear, key fob, antenna. These stay connected. You just flip it to the side and it gives you plenty of space. Now we're going to reinstall the fuse.
I don't need to start the bike.
And now we can cycle the ignition on. You notice that as soon as the fuse was installed, the ignition automatically kicked on. That is the correct order to do it in. All right, nice and simple. It seems simple, but if you don't do it this way, you're gonna run into unnecessary problems. Right, Chris?
Yeah, of course. I learned that.